Well, look, let's move on because we were told last November that 860 visitor visas would be issued to Palestinians needing refuge until the war in Gaza was over. And we were also told that the visas would only be issued after thorough security checks had been conducted.
Yeah, but it's now being reported that more than 2,000 Palestinians allowed into the country will be given the opportunity to stay here permanently. And some of the security checks in a region where we have no staff on the ground, well, they were done in just 60 minutes.
And now the Age newspaper is reporting that, according to government sources, speaking anonymously, of course, have said that the government was planning to create a pathway for residency for Palestinians brought here on visitor visas.
Of course, newly minted Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke didn't confirm those rumours, but nor did he deny them when he spoke today.
People arrived on visitor visas and the government was right to use that visa. It was the easiest visa to be able to deal with in a situation of absolute immediate crisis. We're now in a situation where over time those visas are reaching their expiring date, and there's a decision of government that hasn't been taken yet, so I don't have an announcement to be able to make, but a decision of government as to what the next step is for those individuals.
I was honestly staggered when I heard that statement on Sky News earlier today. I mean, he says the visitor visa was the easiest way to deal with the situation. That wasn't the easiest way. This is what Australians were told back in November. We were told it's OK, this is a visitor visa, it's temporary, they won't be given permanent residency. Now Tony Burke acts like, oh, well, that was just the most convenient thing to do. It's a real problem when the government start mixing up truth and convenience. Then he says, now we're in a situation where those visas are reaching their expiry date. Well, what a surprise. Who knew?
What a shock. Who would have thought?
He acts shocked that this has happened. In other words, the government either had no plan, or when they told Australians these are temporary, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were just going to wait a little while. Then he says there's a decision as to the next step. I thought the decision had been made. I thought the decision was made in November when we were assured repeatedly these are temporary visas. So now I'm a little concerned that, well, what's the decision that's got to be made? You mean that wasn't the decision, though we were led to believe it was the decision? He says no country in the world is sending people back to Gaza for obvious reasons. Well, that may be true, but a lot of us made the point at the time, very few countries in the world are taking refugees from Gaza, including their Muslim neighbours, and that question should have been dealt with more thoroughly. And then finally, Danica, he says, but it's not fair for me to speculate, right? To speculate, we were led to believe this was temporary, and now he's saying it wouldn't be fair to the Australian people for him to speculate on whether temporary means temporary. Go ahead and speculate, because I'd really like to know whether the government meant what they said when they said what they said to us back in November.
Well, James, what's very clear is we've clearly been lied to. It was all a farce.
It does seem
what's happened is that Tony Burke's just taken on this portfolio. It's only been in, I think, about a week now, today. And he's really walking a fine line here because he doesn't want to, of course, upset Muslim voters in his southwest electorate. Obviously, the government is looking towards this next election. And he has got the Muslim vote campaign snooping around at his doorstep and could possibly have an independent running against him on a pro-Gaza platform. Now, don't tell me that these decisions have nothing to do with what's coming at the next election.
He was asked about that and he said, no, it's nothing to do with that.
Yeah, well, you can always deny it, can't you? So he's desperately trying to appease those who, we don't know what values these people hold. We have no idea what their backgrounds are, what their stories, and we certainly can't be convinced that they are the people we want here when it's taken 24 hours back in November just to have a look at, one or two applications. 24 hours isn't exactly going to give you a very thorough security check. The other point to make, James, is that 71% of Palestinians support the Hamas attack that occurred on October 7. And that was according to a survey by the Palestinian Centre for Policy and Survey Research. What does that mean? Who are we bringing into this country? We don't want to bring people with these sorts of views in the country. Now, I'm certainly not saying that everybody has these views. That's not what I'm saying here. But if you're taking 24 hours to check somebody, to check their background, to check their security, that is not adequate enough. So it is very clear that we've been lied to, and Tony Burke is soft on Gaza because it suits him and the government politically.
I think 15.1% of his electorate are Muslim voters. So clearly at a local level, he's got to be practical, but he's also now a government minister responsible for that portfolio. And you would hate to think Australian policy is being determined so that a couple of government ministers can keep their seats.